was the last time you allowed yourself not to respond?
Not out of fear, but because you knew you didn't owe anyone an explanation. We live in a world addicted to instant responses. We've been trained to react to other people's emotions, opinions, glances, and silences. We nod when we disagree. We smile when our chest is burning. We justify ourselves before anyone even asks.
But what has that given you? Are you calmer, stronger, more respected?
No, you've become predictable, convenient, a person who flinches at the slightest touch, easy to manipulate. Your emotional accessibility has turned into vulnerability. You're a panel of buttons that anyone can press, and the more you react, the harder they press. People, knowingly or not, look for your weak spots, and once they find them, they use them. But the truth is, the button only works if you leave it there. True strength isn't about volume, it's about restraint. Not about being everywhere, but being rare, like silence in a noisy hall. When Mahatma Gandhi led the Salt March, he didn't shout, he walked. And it was precisely that persistent, quiet force that moved millions. His refusal to react with aggression made him untouchable. He was in the world, but not of it. To be unreachable isn't to be cold. It's to choose what enters your inner space. You don't hide, you filter. Not every emotion deserves a reaction. Not every person deserves access. We were taught that silence is weakness. In truth, it's a weapon, because every word is a door, and if you open them all, someone will walk into a place they were never meant to be. When you stop explaining yourself, you stop leaking energy. Those who want to understand you will. The rest aren't looking for truth, they're looking for confirmation. The more you talk, the more material you give them. Your truth doesn't need defense. It stands on its own. You're not on trial. You're not under attack. You don't have to be understood. People are masters of projection. They've already written your story. Don't help them finish it. Real strength is in letting go, not just of people, but of the need to be heard, understood, accepted. The tighter you hold on to approval, the more dependent you become. And someone who depends can't be free. To be unreachable isn't about not feeling, it's about choosing what's worth feeling. Not everything deserves your reaction. Not everyone deserves your words. And very few things deserve your explanations. There is silence that comes from emptiness, and there's silence that comes from depth. People feel the difference. Maria Callas, the legendary opera diva, was unreachable not because she was arrogant, but because she knew how to disappear at the right moment. She never explained herself to the press. She left the stage when she felt the performance inside her was done. People craved more, but she gave only what she believed was right. And that's why her image remains untouchable, even decades later. You don't have to be everywhere. You need to be where you are the center, not the puppet. You don't have to be liked by everyone. You need to respect yourself. You don't have to respond to every call. Sometimes silence is the highest form of dignity. In a world where everyone is desperate to be heard, the one who chooses silence becomes the voice that's impossible to forget. How many times have you explained yourself when you didn't have to? How often have you offered reasons just so they wouldn't leave, judge, or forget you? Now ask yourself one thing. Did it ever work? People live with outstretched hands, begging for attention, approval, scraps of understanding. We don't just react, we persuade, justify, plead to be allowed to feel, to choose, to act, all in the hope of not being rejected. You think words will protect you, that if you explain clearly enough, they'll understand, that if your argument is strong enough, they won't condemn you. But in reality, it's the opposite. The more you explain, the less they respect you, because unsolicited justification smells like insecurity. Look at the strong ones throughout history. Winston Churchill didn't waste time explaining his decisions to every critic. He did what he believed needed to be done. People doubted him, protested, analyzed. He carried on because he understood one thing. When you're doing real work, you don't have time to prove you're not a fool. Every attempt to justify yourself is a trade. You're saying, I'll accept your value system, just accept me. But once you play by someone else's rules, you've already lost. You're not standing, you're bending. You don't need to prove that you're a good person. Those who want to see you as bad will find a way. They don't want the truth, they want a reason. And you, with the best of intentions, hand it to them. Wisdom doesn't lie in speaking. It lies in knowing when silence says more than any words. You are not a public service of emotional explanations. The fewer words you give, the more they want to know. The less available you are, the more valuable you become. This is not manipulation. This is self-preservation. When you stop explaining, you build a wall. Not around you, but between yourself and those who don't deserve access. It's not about being closed. It's about being conscious. Not everyone deserves your explanations, and certainly not everyone deserves your vulnerability. Remember this truth: respect begins where unlimited access ends. If you're available to everyone, you belong to no one. If you choose who gets in, you gain value. Why do people push boundaries? Because they feel they can. You hand them access, no filter, no pause, no boundaries, and they enter and they destroy. And then you rebuild yourself only to open the same door again, thinking, this time it'll be different. It won't, because it's not about them, it's about you. Your need to justify yourself is your craving to be accepted. And seeking acceptance at all costs means you're willing to lose yourself. Think of Steve Jobs. He was called difficult, abrasive, intense. He didn't waste time proving he was reasonable. He knew you either build something great or you try to please everyone. You can't do both. The great ones don't explain themselves, not because they have nothing to say, but because their path doesn't require permission. You want to be respected? Stop begging for understanding. You want to be free? Stop explaining your choices. You want to be yourself? Stop proving that you don't have to be someone else. Let your words come from meaning, not from fear of being left. Let silence become your filter. Let your boundaries be not posted on walls, but deeply felt. The one who chooses silence chooses power. The one who doesn't explain refuses submission. The one who filters access remains whole. And if it scares you, this thought of being alone, know this. True loneliness is surrounding yourself with people who constantly need reasons to respect you. True closeness is being able to sit in silence with someone and still be seen. Why do you believe that everyone should know everything about you? Who told you that being transparent means being authentic? And more importantly, why do you let people enter your inner world without even knocking? We live in a time where honesty is often confused with confession. We've been trained to be open, genuine, real, but where is the line between honesty and emotional overexposure? You share everything. What hurts, who hurt you, what you fear, what you crave. You think you're being vulnerable, but in truth, you're exposing yourself. Because not everyone who listens does so with care. Some listen only to later use it against you. And the more you spill, the less you're respected. True strength lies in measured revelation, in knowing when, what, and to whom to give. Secrecy is not always about fear. Sometimes it's about dignity. Look at powerful figures from history: Che Guevara, Vladimir Nabokov, Meryl Streep. Their power wasn't just in talent, but in inner reserve. They were never public property. They didn't explain themselves. They didn't hand themselves out to everyone. They were magnetic precisely because they were inaccessible. You can be brilliant, successful, charismatic, but if you're too easy to read, you lose your depth. People aren't drawn to what's explained. They're drawn to the unknown, to what raises questions but doesn't offer answers. Being mysterious isn't a game. It's a skill of self-possession. You don't need to be a book anyone can flip through in 5 minutes. Let those who want to understand you first learn to respect you. When you're silent, they observe. When you overshare, they categorize and forget. Not every emotion is meant for public access. Not every close person is truly trustworthy. And not every interest in you is sincere. Sometimes it's just curiosity dressed as care, and curiosity doesn't protect you. Restraint is not coldness, it's maturity. Too many people confuse presence with availability. They think that if you're around, you owe them your soul, but you are not a service window. You are a sanctuary. Entry is not granted on demand. Think of how history's most influential minds behaved. Leonardo da Vinci, one of the greatest thinkers of all time, was known for his restraint. He didn't explain everything. He let his work speak for him. The Mona Lisa is still a mystery. That's her power. If he had written beneath the portrait, "She smiles because he would have destroyed the magic." A secret is not weakness. It's power, wrapped in silence. And when you choose not to fully reveal yourself, you protect not just your energy, but your dignity. You are not cheap entertainment. You are not an open diary. You are not a story that needs to be understood in order to be loved. Choose rarity. Choose incompleteness. Choose that feeling of unfinished sentences that spark curiosity without breaking your boundaries. When you become someone who can't be fully decoded, you become someone people want to understand endlessly. Because in a world where everyone shares everything, you will be the one who knows how to stay quiet. And silence, when intentional, becomes a symbol of depth. Depth becomes magnetic, and you become unreachable. Why do you believe that if you stay silent, you lose? Who convinced you that reaction equals power? That if you don't respond, you'll disappear? What if it's the exact opposite? There's a fine line between self-control and suppression, and if you can't see it, you'll either explode or suffocate. We weren't taught to wait. We were taught to respond immediately, justify, argue, prove. But in that instant reaction lies our greatest power leak. You think silence is weakness, but in reality, it's what unsettles people the most. You assume that if you don't defend yourself, they'll think you're guilty. But here's the truth: the one who remains quiet while everyone else screams controls the situation. Observe. Don't rush. The world is not ruled by those who panic. It's ruled by those who know how to wait. Here's a graceful example from history. Nelson Mandela, 27 years in prison. 27 years of silent, invisible resistance. He didn't rage, he didn't beg, he waited. And when his time came, he didn't return with vengeance, he returned with dignity and changed a nation. Active patience is not weakness, it's strategy. It's the decision not to jump into every argument, not to fall into every emotional trap, not to explain where no one truly listens but merely provokes. You feel it boiling inside. You want to snap back, to correct, to prove. But that's the trap. They want to drag you into a game. And here's how the game works. You react, you lose. Because the moment you react, you're no longer in control. You've become a reflex. Predictable, manipulatable, but what if you don't react? What if you just observe? What if you let the silence stretch? Silence disorients. It breaks the script. It denies the other person control. This is real maturity. You're not avoiding conflict. You choose not to engage. You're not afraid to speak. You wait for the right moment. You're not ignoring the emotions. You govern them. That's what earns true respect. Not loud speeches, not righteous monologues, but the ability to remain anchored while others are swept away in emotional storms. There's a technique used by expert negotiators: tactical silence. After a question, a provocation, or an accusation, they say nothing. The silence throws the other person off. They don't know what you're thinking. They can't read you. And they start to reveal more than they intended, all while you just watch. This works not just in business, it works in life. When you don't rush to explain, The world starts guessing what's inside you. And here's where the magic happens. The less you say, the more power they project onto you. Have you ever seen how true martial arts masters enter a fight? No shouting, no theatrics, quiet, collected, in full control, because they know noise comes from fear. Silence comes from certainty. You don't need to be the loudest person in the room. You need to be the most centered. You don't have to win through argument, you win through presence. Silence doesn't make you cold, it makes you focused. You're not detached, you've chosen your ground, you're not indifferent, you're conserving energy. Because every outburst, every unnecessary word, every let me explain is a withdrawal from your power account. It's a leak, a weakening of your core. But you are no longer a reaction, you are the anchor. The world is uneasy around those who don't crave approval. People are unsettled by those who cannot be insulted with words. Society stumbles before those who don't need to be right because they've chosen peace instead. Everything that once triggered you now bounces off. Not because you're numb, but because you've centered yourself. You stop reacting to every movement and suddenly everything around slows down. You stop answering every challenge and the challenges begin to fade. You stop proving you're good and they start believing it. This isn't magic, it's a system of inner authority. And its core mechanism is the choice to act or to do nothing at all, and that nothing becomes everything. How long are you going to wait to give yourself permission to be yourself? How many more times will you look around for someone's approval as if without it you don't exist? You've walked the path. You stayed silent when you wanted to scream. You stopped explaining yourself. You learned to be unreachable, composed, grounded. You began choosing who gets close. You no longer flinch at every word. You are no longer a reaction. You are the anchor. But one thing still lingers, the most subtle, the most deceptive. You may no longer seek a response, but deep down you still want to be understood. You hope someone sees your silence, deciphers your distance, recognizes your depth, but listen carefully. You don't need to be understood to be worthy. You're not an instruction manual, not a neatly labeled folder, not a quote that needs a caption. You are a person, complex, layered, sometimes difficult to grasp, and that's your beauty. When you truly own yourself, you stop waiting for others to get you. You no longer live to explain, you live to be. It's not coldness, it's clarity. You're not closing off from connection, you've simply stopped chasing it. Think of the greats, Freddie Mercury, Virginia Woolf, Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. They weren't understood in their time, they were judged, called strange, difficult, distant, but they didn't bend, they didn't explain, they existed, and that was enough. Their being outlived them. You don't have to be understood to be great. You don't have to be decoded to be deep. You don't have to be accepted to be whole. And here is where freedom begins. True freedom, no filters, no begging, no adjustments. You no longer seek approval. You no longer reach for arms that don't value you. You no longer shrink yourself to be digestible. You just live without shouting, without needing, without explaining, with your spine straight, your gaze steady, and a presence that doesn't ask but chooses. Now you are the silence that speaks, the mystery that earns respect without needing to be solved, the presence that doesn't beg but simply is, and within that presence there is power, there is peace, there is an unshakable knowing. You're no longer searching, you're no longer proving, you're no longer trying to be seen, you are, and that is enough. Now listen closely. If you made it to this moment, it's not by chance. It means something inside you has already shifted. You feel it deep down. A calm you can't buy. A quiet confidence that doesn't raise its voice. You are not the same person who started this video. You are closer to yourself than you've ever been. And if any part of this resonated with you, leave a comment and write, I don't need to be understood to be powerful. I want to see who's ready to stop living for applause and start living from that untouchable stillness within. Don't forget to subscribe, because here we don't talk about what's loud. We speak to what's real, what stays with you even after the screen fades to black. And now, I'll leave the way power arrives, quietly, without noise, just disappear. So you can be left with yourself, and this isn't the end, it's the beginning of a you that no one can ever reach.